back with another delivery checklist, and this time we have a delivery checklist for the Rivian R2. Let's go. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of go over the whole checklist. Not every single one, because some of them are kind of obvious, but we're gonna summarize some parts. We're gonna make this available on our website, on our blog, so you can just click the link below and then you can download it, take it to your delivery. These are also things that we've learned from other folks that have taken delivery, and just certain things to look for. It is a new vehicle, so it kind of reminds me of those Model 3 early days when there were, I feel like, a little bit more issues, build issues, and so on. That's just part of the game when there is a spanking brand new car. So before accepting delivery, a couple things that you want to make sure is that the VIN number is located right here in the glass, as you can see. And you just want to make sure that when you do the delivery, it matches with your phone and then the car itself. Other things that you want to make sure is you also get key cards, you get key fobs. You want to make sure all of that works. But one of the first things that you're going to end up doing is you're probably not going to use a fob, and you will most likely use the Rivian app. And it actually links with your Apple Wallet, which is really, really cool. And I'll kind of show you how it works. You basically have like a key card like this, and then you could lock and unlock the car as well. So very, very cool. So you just want to make sure that's all good. And then same thing, speaking of the phone, you just want to make sure everything on your app is working very, very good. So let's go ahead and move on to, I think, what a lot of people like to focus on, and it is the exterior. So this is very, very standard for all cars. You just want to make sure that you don't have any dents, scratches, chips, or paint damage. Typically, let's talk about dents. Dents, you want to look at it on an angle like this. And if you see some sort of divot or something like that, that's something you definitely want to tell your delivery specialist. Couple things that you want to, this isn't a brand new R1. Let me go ahead and lock this so that the lights are off. There you go. I want to kind of show you what a chip looks like. It's actually, this is a very, very good example of a chip. This did not come from the car like itself, but that is a big chip right there. You see that? That's actually metal being exposed, so something really hard hit that, and this is kind of why we recommend PPF. Not trying to be biased, but it is important. That would have definitely helped with that big old chip. So that's what a chip looks like. Deeper scratches, typically we use a fingernail test. So you basically run your fingernail through, and if you can feel it, it means it's a little too deep. Most likely we'll need some mending. You can't just buff it out necessarily. It might be too deep. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Couple things that you want to look for is panel alignment. I mean, I think this is actually something that most cars, I mean, a lot of cars actually deal with. This relatively is a very good build, in my opinion, for the most part. Obviously, we took out the trims, and it doesn't come like that. We did it because we're doing some R&D. We're going to be wrapping this car. So we already have it trimmed. We already got it washed, and it's kind of ready to go. But I want to show you an example of something that you do want to double check. It's something like this. So if you look at it even in this angle, it's definitely seated and the gap is quite, and it will need a little bit of adjustment. That's not too big of a deal. They can definitely adjust it. This is still an early car, so I feel like most of the engineers and Rivian does a really good job in making sure that you're taken care of. So that wouldn't be like a necessary reason to like say no to the car. But definitely that's an example of a bad panel gap. If you look at the rest though, it lines up pretty consistently from the frunk right here, from this right here, from the spacing all the way through. I mean, if you look at it comparatively from the one side to the other, it is pretty consistent for the most part. So you definitely want to give a little bit of grace, but you just want to make sure that you can check and it's not ridiculous. I think the main thing for me that I look at is like doors. If it's misaligned, and this is not just for like Rivian, but other cars, is like it's got to close properly. That's like the main thing that you want to look at. You also want to look at a couple areas. So all the trim pieces, just make sure they're not damaged. Sometimes that does happen, damage. Like again, this is removed. We have it over there. It's fine, but you might have a nick or something. That's just something that they can really replace fairly quickly. And then we also want to just look at the tailgate area, which is like all this area. Make sure there's no damage, no dings, and everything else. You also want to look for underneath for loose or hanging panels. and we're good to go. Nothing is hanging. Also, while you're down there, you could look for any leaks or anything like that, but typically, I mean, it is a new build, so I mean, that's going to be unlikely, but it's always good to check that for fluids. So let's go ahead and move on to the wheels and tires. This one's pretty easy. You just want to make sure you can go over the list, and I'm not going to go over all of it, but what you're looking for, these are the 20-inch wheels, the off-road wheels. This actually comes with a BF Goodrich, really, really cool wheels, the trail terrain version. So in this case, what you're looking for, and I've seen this on all the other cars that we've kind of picked up, is sometimes like it'll get nicked on the tire itself. Like you definitely want to let them know and they can replace that. And then of course you also want to look at the wheel itself and make sure there are no dings, scratches, or anything like that that's deep. This is an example of a scratch that you do want to let them know. This wasn't done actually before delivery. This was done after delivery, so this is not something that they can fix. But that's actually what you're looking for. Maybe it did happen during delivery, and then you just want to make sure that you let them know so that they could put it in and then they could fix it later down the line. Really small stuff. Check all the valve stems are there. Go inside, check the pressure. I mean, basic stuff like that. But I think the main thing that you're really looking for is any damage on the wheel itself. You've paid good money for this 20-inch, really beautiful wheels. You just want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it and no dings on it. So now we're going to go into the door seals and openings. Really the main thing is when you get close to the car, the doors actually come out like that, which is really, really cool. You just want to make sure that it closes properly and there's no additional friction. That's really what you're looking for. Like it shouldn't be like that's actually pretty light. That's a very light, and it should close that easily. If you're having a difficult time closing, there might be a mismatch. It might need to be realigned a little bit. That's really what you're looking for. You want to make sure that all your door handles are working, which we've already checked. And then of course you want to go inside and then make sure that you do have the weather stripping, which is like right here. This is very important. It's called weather stripping because you want to make sure that there's no water or moisture that gets in. This kind of holds in with this line right here that kind of keeps it sealed, and to make sure that all of them are in there as well. So while you're there, you can kind of tug on the seals to make sure that nothing is kind of loose or anything like that. Sometimes, a lot of times it kind of seats in, so you can kind of push it in for the most part. It's not any servicing that you would need. And then of course you want to open up the frunk and then the trunk as well. So on the trunk, you actually just open it by, there's a button right there, right? And then you see there's no weird sounds, no creaking sounds, nothing like that. It opens perfectly fine. Push the button again, and it also closes and latches. Latches are typically sometimes, and again, all cars just have some issues sometimes. And then while we're here, we can open up the doggy gate, or is that what it's called? The rear window, and then you can close it again. There you go. And there you go. And then while we're here, we can go ahead and open up the charge port actually. So even though this is slightly misaligned, this is actually a manual approach. So just like that, and then you just close it in. It does open and close fine, so that's really the most important thing. And then of course the frunk. So the frunk is actually not an automatic. It's basically auto open and then auto latching. Okay, open hood. I use the app. This is what I'm saying. This is an auto open. It has a nice open. I've talked to some other Rivian R2 owners. They say that it kind of opens low, and then you can actually adjust it and go a little bit higher. After that, it does require a little bit of force, but you can see the hydraulics right here. And then what I mean by auto latching is it closes pretty easy, but look at this. Once it grabs, it latches on its own. So that's what I mean by auto latching. You just want to make sure that that works perfectly fine. That's pretty much it for door seals and opening. We already kind of talked about the frunk. You're really looking for the unusual noises, anything that's weird, clanking sounds or anything like that. This was perfect. It latched perfectly. It opened perfectly. The opening low, I think that's just like a strut thing or like the hydraulics thing. I don't think that's anything that you can really fix. So that's just what it is. So moving on, we're gonna go ahead and go with the cameras and exterior lights, which is basically, there's a lot of cameras in the Rivian R2. There's obviously a camera in the front right in the trim right here. Each mirror has 3. There's 1, 2, and 3. It gives you the 360 view. It's a lot of cameras, so that's kind of part of why you just want to make sure you inspect every single one of them and make sure that they are good. And then of course you also have a rear view camera that will help you, which is right there. So you just want to inspect all the cameras to make sure. Once you inspect, just go ahead and go inside, and then you could view the camera view, and then you can see all the cameras, and you're just making sure that all of them are visible. Sometimes you might have to reset, soft reset or whatever to get the cameras working. That's typically not a huge issue, but what you're looking for is any sort of cracking or anything like that that might have happened in the transit period. So, of course, some safety stuff. You want to make sure that all lights are working. You kind of saw earlier that the lights were perfectly working right over there. Brake lights are working as well. We kind of already checked that. So now let's go ahead and go to the interior. Before I get in, I just want to show you. This is, as we do R&D, this is actually one of the things that several R2 owners told us about is this area. This is actually called a door kicker, and they're called door kicker for a reason. People kick this all the time, but it is a very soft plastic that damages. This is almost a brand new car, and you can see all the scuff marks right there. So we're going to try to come up with something that that isn't something that I don't know if you can complain about, but we are going to come out with a wrap or something or protectant for that area. So let's go ahead and go inside and then do a really quick inspection. So once you go inside, you can see the seats are very, very high quality. I love the stitching in them. I love the pattern that they have. It feels pretty premium, honestly. It's perforated, and what you're really looking for the interior is basically any sort of rips, tears, or any sort of like areas that are, you know, damaged. And you can see all very clean. There's no damage on the pleather itself. And then you're also looking for any sort of like looseness of the trim, and also just making sure that there's no damage on any of this dashboard as well. That's really the main thing. The wood trim, I kind of like it. I like that it's a little bit more like grayish and muted in this particular launch green. And you know, you're just making sure that there's also no damage there. It is wood, so there might be some like imperfections that come from being it wood. But other than that, there should be no like real big damages on the wood itself. You're just making sure all the hinges are good, right? All these are working fine. Just kind of play with the wheels. You're just making sure that everything is working and nothing is out of the ordinary. This panoramic roof, panoramic, it's kind of hard to say, is massive, and I think they did a really good job. And they've also done a really good job in terms of insulating it and having that UV IR protection. But you just want to make sure that there's no cracks on it. I don't know, sometimes it's very rare, but you know, you just want to closely inspect. If you have people in the back, just have them inspect on their end as well. And you should also do it from the outside as well. And then of course there's interior lights. So you could actually turn on, you know, this is the emergency lights. And then you could also check the lights here. And then there's also lights on the back, and you just want to make sure that all of them are working. You just want to make sure that all windows are going down. Actually, there's a really cool way. There's this thing called 5X. When you do this, you bring it down. All 5 windows go down at the same time. That's kind of cool. And then you go up. All windows go up at the same time. So you could test it all at once without pressing all of them at the same time. I'll talk about the front door emergency latch. And one thing I did notice that I'll show you, this particular owner mentioned that this kind of dangles, like it doesn't really stay. So this might be a potential, like it's great that you can see the emergency latch. What it is if this doesn't work, you can actually pull this and it'll open the door, right? But you notice how easily that came out? It's very loose. Look at that. I put no force. So that might be something you might want to bring up and get like a new trim so it's a little tighter. Because he mentioned that when he drives it just kind of like pops out. Like look at that. One thing that's really cool that's unique to Rivian is a flashlight. Super cool. So basically you just push it in, comes out, you could turn it on. And I was like, well, what if it's on and I put it back in with a battery drain. Check this out. They thought of everything. It turns off automatically. So I mean, it's really cool. Honestly, it just kind of speaks to the culture of the Rivian brand. I love it. These are just some things that are like very, very unique to the Rivian brand itself. So rear cargo area, moving on. You just want to inspect all that area. We actually just washed this. So this is actually a good time to check moisture. You can see that there's no actual moisture in the inside, and that's really what you're looking at. Usually there's this little vent right here for aerodynamic, and it kind of goes around here and then goes into this black trim right here. So I mean, you just want to make sure that no water is actually seeping through this area as well. I mean, this is actually from us, so don't worry too much about that. Storage compartments. This is the launch edition, so you get a couple cool stuff, but pretty deep. Yep, there's your tire inflator. That one right there is your jack pads. And then you get all this massive storage. I mean, I love the storage. I think it's pretty big. You got the outlet right here. This is a 110. And you also got a 12 volt out there as well. That's a 120 volt right there. So yeah, confirm the tire inflator, the spare equipment. Some people get their spare here. I had another Rivian owner that I talked to. He already had a spare, which is really cool. He was showing me. So talking about the outlet, just make sure that they work. You can bring a charger or something like that. Typically, you might have to turn it on from the inside. I think we can skip kind of like the software and center display. The main thing that you just want to have fun in is like just go in there and familiarize yourself. One thing that I will say is kind of like the Tesla. When you go in, you can say, walk me through, and it'll give you a tour of the whole thing. And if you're a new Rivian owner, that is really cool. It very much is very similar to kind of like the Model S and X, where it had, you know, the screen right here and then the big screen in the middle, but it definitely has its own flair. But, you know, very, very similar in the sense of the minimalistic big screen in the middle and small screen in the front for your dashboard. So go ahead and play around with that and just make sure that everything is familiar before you start driving, because if you're coming from like an ICE car to this, or even a Tesla, it's gonna feel very, very different, from buttons to basically almost no buttons, right? So, and I would highly recommend with the launch edition, you do get some of the autonomy plus, and you can turn that on and then, you know, use that on your drive home, right? So one thing that I'll kind of go back inside, and I've actually heard this from several Rivian friend owners from R2, is their subwoofer failed, or it like didn't work and it failed almost immediately. Again, this is not something that represents all of their cars. This is very early build still. The VIN numbers are still quite low. They're going to work on it. It doesn't, you know, mean that they're, I think they're going to work it out. But what I'm saying is, like, go ahead and play your favorite. I'm not going to play any song right now due to copyright reasons, but go ahead and jam out, connect your phone, and then play your favorite songs. And just make sure, find something with a good bass, and then just check the sound system to make sure that there's no like rattling. That's really what you're hearing for. And if it's like basically like subwoofer failing, you'll know that it is failing. So that's something that you definitely want to make sure that's good. And then that's really the main thing for the music and connectivity that you just want to make sure. But one thing that I've noticed though is, like, I do have a good amount of like Rivian friends that took delivery of the R2, and even though they had some of these issues, and not all of them do, some of them had perfect ones, but the ones that did, most of them got it taken care of by Rivian. So kudos to Rivian for making it right and just making sure they're understanding that this is an earlier build and they've been making it right for most of these customers. So kudos on that. Moving forward, you also want to make sure that you set up something like Gear Guard, which is basically like a security system, Sentry mode if you're coming from a Tesla owner. And you just want to make sure you have a USB-C drive, or, you know, which is going to be like right inside here, and you can connect that. The last thing that I would say before we actually get to, you know, the service center stuff is basically just checking your app. So your app will look something like this. Like right now I have this on service mode, mainly because we're working on it ourselves. But basically you can go here and then just kind of play around with all the app. I think they did a really good job with the app in terms of, you know, controlling the car and all that stuff. But you just want to make sure that it works from the app to the car. And then just like you did in the infotainment center, you want to do the exact same thing on your phone and then familiarize yourself, especially if you're coming from an ICE car to a Rivian or an electric car. So go ahead and have fun with that. And then if you find a problem, tell the team while you're there if possible. If it's not, there might be some things, but don't be hesitant to tell them afterwards as well. I like to tell them there though, because if you can, because I think a lot of the times, kind of like the early days of Tesla, you might be pretty far from the closest Rivian service center. So it just depends. If you're in a major city and you already have, and it's just 10 miles or 20 miles away, maybe that's fine. But for those of you who are, you know, who are coming in from a further away, you might want to have a much more thorough inspection before leaving the site. And also, it's a safety thing, right? You don't want to leave and something really be critically wrong and then be stranded in the middle of nowhere, right? So that's really the main thing that I would definitely make sure. And then just like, you know, kind of like Tesla, like you can actually do a lot of the service appointments on your phone. It's a pretty integrated approach. We don't do delivery checklists to, I think, scare people, but I do think that you just want to make sure that what you're getting is the best vehicle that you can, and we're a big proponent of that. So you just want to make sure that you have all your, you know, ducks in order so you can enjoy this beautiful Rivian R2, you know, for a long time. So thank you so much for watching. Happy delivery to you guys. We really wish you the best. Good luck. I know you're going to love this car. It's a beautiful car. And if you have any questions, let us know in the comment below. We're going to have a lot of R2 content. And thank you for subscribing to the Hour Wrap Club. We'll see you later.